John Whitman gazed out from the front porch of the weathered farmhouse he had shared with Mabel for 6 decades. The setting sun veiled the horizon in a tapestry of gold and amber, casting long shadows that seemed to whisper secrets he couldn't quite catch. Despite the serene landscape, a quiet storm brewed within him, a question he couldn't quell. Had he truly known Mabel, the woman with whom he'd built his life? Their bond, as steadfast as the ancient oaks lining the driveway, bore the weight of years filled with shared memories. Yet, as Mabel lay frail and asleep in the next room, John's heart was a tangle of fear and love, haunted by the envelope he discovered moments ago, hidden within the pages of her favorite book. It was addressed to him and bore the unmistakable mark of Mabel's elegant script. Fingering the crisp edges, John was terrified of the possibility of discovering truths that could unravel the tightly knit fabric of their shared past. Could one letter shift the weight of 60 years? With a deep breath, he decided it was time to turn the page. John turned his back to the dwindling light and entered the house, the familiar creak of the wooden floorboards punctuating his heavy footsteps. The house was a gallery of their memories. Photographs hung on walls, capturing moments of laughter, celebrations, and silent, unspoken love. The scent of Mabel's potpourri, a mix of lavender and rosemary, lingered in the air like a comforting embrace. Even as doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve, these small details grounded him, whispering promises of continuity and perseverance. He paused by the hallway mirror, staring at the reflection of a man weathered yet wise. Time had etched lines upon his face like a lifelong map, each wrinkle a testament to a shared journey he deeply cherished and now potentially threatened by revelations contained within that simple envelope in his hand. As he hesitated, memories surged forth, their wedding day beneath an arch of wildflowers, afternoon picnics under the vast blue sky, and Mabel's laughter, a melody that had filled every crevice of their lives. John's heart ached with an unfamiliar heaviness as he made his way to the living room. He settled into the armchair by the fireplace, its comforting wear fitting him perfectly, a nest built over years of companionship. He glanced towards the room where Mabel lay resting. Her illness, vicious and unrelenting, had crept into their lives quiet as a thief, stealing her from him little by little. The envelope trembled in his hands, a tangible reminder of a past he had never questioned until now. Taking a deep breath, he steeled himself against the tide of uncertainty. This was not merely about unearthing truths or confronting shadows. It was about the finale of a story, the closing chapter of a shared life that deserved the grace of understanding and forgiveness. With a sigh that was both resignation and resolve, John carefully opened the envelope. As the paper unfolded, anticipation gave way to a medley of emotions: fear, curiosity, love. Mabel's words, written with care and intention, began to form vivid images in his mind. She spoke of a childhood marked by dreams and solitude, her voice whispering up from the pages. John could almost hear the laughter between the words, the gently captured essence of the woman he loved. But as he read further, that melody shifted. Mabel recounted a chapter he had not known, a girl young and scared, meeting life with an unexpected twist, a child born in secret, surrendered in love and despair. The details danced across the pages like shadows barely caught, each sentence drawing John deeper into a narrative he had never imagined. He leaned back, eyes closed, and let the revelation sink in. There, beneath the surface, was a truth far different from anything he might have imagined in the quiet corners of his mind. A hidden son, a decision made long before they exchanged vows, one that Mabel carried alone in her heart, a burden unspoken yet ever present. His chest tightened with a mix of anger and sorrow, betrayal casting a long shadow over the years they shared. Anger at the secret kept, and sorrow for the love Mabel must have shouldered alone all this time. Yet beneath it all lay a profound compassion, an understanding of the circumstances that forged such a choice. To love someone is to bear their complexities, their scars and their truths, spoken or not. John sat in the chair beneath the flickering firelight, letting the memories wash over him in waves. He thought of Mabel, her kindness, her resilience, the unyielding love they promised to each other so many years ago. She had been his partner, his confidant, his home. Now, the space between them was filled with a secret unfurling its delicate petals in her quiet absence. The soft shuffling of footsteps caught his attention, and his heart tripped over itself for a moment. Mabel appeared in the doorway, frail yet determined, her eyes searching for an unspoken understanding. "John." Her voice, though weak, carried the weight of shared history. "I found the letter," he said gently, meeting her gaze with a mixture of forgiveness and desperation. Mabel nodded slowly, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I've held on to that secret for so long," she whispered, a tremor in her voice. "Not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't know how to let it be part of us." He crossed the room in a few steps, gathering her hands in his, feeling the familiar contours intertwined with his own strength. "We'll make it part of us now," he said softly, with the conviction of a man who understood his heart would always compass toward love. They stood there, linked by years and tears, as an unspoken promise lingered in the space between them, a vow to face the unknown together, empowered by the resilience they had nurtured over 60 long and beautiful years. As the envelope flitted open like a butterfly taking flight, John braced himself for impact. He felt a chill that juxtaposed the warmth of the afternoon as he pulled free the stack of papers. Sitting alone in the dimly lit living room, where shadows flickered alongside the fire, a century aglow in the hearth, he realized that this was a sacred moment, suspended between the past and an unforeseen future. Mabel's handwriting spanned the sheets, intricate and familiar. Her words were like breaths captured in time, imbued with the weight of confession, desire, and hidden truths. The opening paragraphs lulled him with soft touches of nostalgia. She wrote of summers spent beneath willow trees, of their first dance under a pale moon, of a love deeper than any ocean. Each recollection painted a narrative familiar and cherished, set against the backdrop of a shared existence. John could almost hear her voice, clear and melodic, in whispered tones as if she were sitting beside him, recounting their history as one might relay a cherished folktale by the fireside. Yet, woven between the idyllic memories, lay a confession, a revelation gnarled and raw. Mabel had once harbored a child from before their marriage, surrendered out of fear and circumstance, a boy unknown to John and concealed by necessity. The truth laid bare like a wound exposed, and John was blindsided, feeling a pressure build behind his eyes as every word burrowed into his consciousness. The room seemed to close in around him, the walls pressing with an intensity that matched the turmoil within. His mind grappled with the dissonance, a secret life intersecting with the only life he'd known. How could such a monumental truth nest so quietly in their marriage's attic, untouched and unseen for 60 years? He fumbled to find a place in all this, searching the flame's light for answers, feeling acutely the fragility of the world he had built atop the foundation he once thought unshakable. He felt the seismic shift deep within, shaking the bedrock of his certainties. Anger flared and then ebbed, making room for a deep, aching sorrow. His heart broke for Mabel, for her silent burden carried alone, and for the son he never knew he had. A man now, distinct, separate, yet eternally bound by blood and untold stories. With a soft exhale, John reached over to the small table beside the armchair. It was littered with remnants of their life, reading glasses she often misplaced and post-it notes covered in her tidy script with reminders and wishful thoughts. He placed the letter there, nestling it gently as though placing a sleeping child to bed. Then came a moment of reconciliation with himself. Slowly, he opened the window, inviting the chill of twilight to cool the fever of revelation. The breeze, charged with the scent of impending rain and earth awakened, swirled around him. In its soft caress, he found clarity sprouting, fragile but resilient. Realizing Mabel's turmoil mirrored his own told him this was a chance to unearth not just her hidden past, but perhaps fragments of themselves they had long lost. Taking a deep breath, he stood, gathering strength from a lifetime of enduring bonds, foiling doubts like the persistent weeds chickens pecked in Mabel's cherished garden. This was not the end of their story. It was just a new beginning, albeit one marked by unexpected elements and layers he hadn't anticipated. As he made his way toward Mabel's room, shadows lingered in the hallway, stretching toward him like curious playmates eager for reconciliation. Each step was a testament to decades of unwavering love, each breath as if drawing from a reservoir of quiet understanding and gentle forgiveness. He pushed open the door softly, the hinges barely making a sound. The room was filled with a warm twilight glow. Mabel lay within, delicate and still against the woven quilt that brightened their bed. Her figure frail and tiny, yet so profoundly familiar. There was a serenity here that seemed to bless everything with a tender glow, like moonlight kissing the night. She stirred, eyelids sliding open with the fragile grace of flowers unfurling at dawn. Her eyes searched for his, and he felt their connection thrumming, an unspoken dialogue that once bridged ease and kept love luminous. "John," she mused slowly, her voice wrapped in the gentle weight of shared years. He approached quietly, knees finding the softened floor beside her as he clasped her hands in his, weathered but warm, as if recalling each callus and crease to memory anew. "I found the letter," he spoke, the raw edges of his voice barely contained. Her lips parted slightly, a breath hushing out the tension in the room. "I've held on to that secret for so long," she confessed, her voice hitching between gratitude and terror. "Not because I didn't trust you, but because I didn't know how to let it be part of us." In her eyes he saw a flickering of doubt, soon eclipsed by relief and perhaps hope, a fragile thing but present nonetheless. He nodded, slow and deliberate, as if each motion brought them closer to healing. His thumb traced circles over her hand, a grounding point, and in that moment, understanding flourished like wildflowers born of spring rains. "We'll make it part of us now," he whispered, the vow a testament to resilience, spoken by a man who chose love. They remained together as night deepened around them, weaving into the fabric of memory and possibility. It was a beginning anew, embraced fully, and through it, the shadows softened into an embrace, holding them not in judgment, but in the infinite loop of life. Here, in the swell of newfound family and cherished paths entwined, they found peace, carried forward by the enduring light of love. John drove through the quiet streets of their small town, each twist and turn of the road rooted in memory. The old clock tower, sentinel at the town square, marked the noon hour with deep, resonant chimes that dictated the rhythm of daily life. Yet today, every second echoed in John's heart like a countdown toward inevitable revelation. He clutched the original envelope tightly as if its thin skin contained the mysteries of life itself, and in a sense, for him it did. The adoption agency's modest building loomed in front of him. It was a small, nondescript structure, where stories began and others transformed, wills and fates bound tightly, ready to be written anew. John took a deep breath before stepping inside, the agency's sterile interior offering a stark contrast to the riot of emotions within him. The overly bright fluorescent lights did nothing to calm the storm roiling inside his chest. After a short conversation with the receptionist and a shuffling of papers, John was led into a small meeting room. He waited, standing awkwardly until he noticed a pair of chairs arranged neatly by a small table. As he sat, a figure appeared in the doorway. The sight of Daniel, standing uncertain but present, drove home the reality staggering in its completeness. Here was the son he'd not known, yet who bore the echo of Mabel in posture, in the depth of his eyes, in the hesitant, hopeful way he held himself. The room seemed to shrink as Daniel navigated its confines, a shared space of history and potential. Eyes met. Recognition sparked despite decades of absence. John gestured for Daniel to join him, words tangled under the weight of their shared silence. "Hello, Mr. Whitman," Daniel began, his voice both steady and fragile, like a handcrafted vessel braving uncertain waters. "John, please," he replied, a ripple of emotion carrying his name across the room. The sound settled between them like a bridge newly formed, tentative yet sturdy. I didn't know you existed until recently," Daniel confessed, his tone straddling vulnerability and strength. It was the voice of a man forged by resilience, stitched together by untold personal truths. "As did I," John returned, a soft chuckle escaping, tempered by the irony and the deep ache of lost time. "It seems we both have a lot to learn." Daniel's eyes, pools of warmth and discovery, glanced around the room, resting occasionally on John. She must have had her reasons," he offered, concern etched in the fabric of his words. "Yes, she did," John affirmed, nodding with a somber certainty as they engaged in this unveiling of stories that had been sidelined by time and circumstance. "Mabel loved deeply, sometimes beyond her own ability to sustain it. I wish I had realized the depth of her solitude earlier." Their conversation wove between shared facts and whispered memories, as Daniel relayed what he knew of his own origins. The tender moments, the heart-wrenching choices, and the hope that had silently shadowed him through life. As he spoke, John's understanding of Mabel's heartache grew. A hidden piece now gifted its rightful place in the mosaic of their intertwined lives. The afternoon sun cast soft beams across the room, warming the dark wood panels and kindling highlights in Daniel's hair, a striking memento of Mabel in younger days. John's heart constricted with renewed admiration for the woman who had touched so many lives, their shared history amplifying her enduring presence even in her absence. As their dialogue tapered off, Daniel presented a small keepsake, an old photograph of Mabel, smiling and carefree, her gaze distant, eyes without shadow or burden. John accepted it, a pilgrim finally granted communion after a lengthy penance. Seeing Mabel anew through the lens of Daniel's experiences offered John a panorama of reclamation and sincerity. A shared laugh, stories of trivialities made grand by the passage of time, bound them more tightly than familial claims ever could. Eventually, silence took its place, a companionable pause laced with the uncertainty of beginnings. John sat still, the photograph cradled in his palm, feeling the thrum of something vibrant and new. Hope burgeoning where despair had once loomed. "I'd like to get to know you," Daniel ventured, a hint of question nestled within the statement. "More than anything," John agreed, voice firm but gentle, a promise between them forging a familial bond where none had been before. "We have time." A silence settled between them, heavy with significance yet easing with promise. As they prepared to part ways, John felt the tectonic plates of his reality settle, the pieces not quite aligned but slowly drawing into a semblance of wholeness. Driving back toward the farmhouse, John reflected on the shift in his heart. The lightness exhumed from sorrow, like sunrise scouring the night's cloak. Today's revelations kindled resilience, charting a course bound less by what had been lost than by what could yet be found. John returned to find the farmhouse wrapped in the comforting embrace of late afternoon quiet. The world he re-entered was one touched by grace, swathed in the vibrant pulses of newfound kinship. Inside, under the gentle murmur of dusk, he sat in his familiar armchair by the hearth, heart full of love and newly found family. The stillness there was not finality, but potential. It hummed of joy, reconciliation, and the enduring tether of loyalty. An arc crafted by time, wrapped in resilience and spurred by unyielding hope, whether seen or hidden in the dance of firelight against seasoned walls. Mabel, ever present, resonated within every frame and shadow, her love imprinted indelibly on the very fabric of their shared life. As twilight bled into evening, John's peace swelled, tomorrow promising not just remembrance, but adventure, knit with threads of justice and enduring redemption. The afternoon sun dipped warmly behind the farmhouse, casting a golden hue over the sprawling fields that cradled John Whitman's life. He stepped out of the car, the quiet whisper of dusk enveloping him in an aura of introspective peace. The journey he had taken today had been both arduous and illuminating, a path through the tangled woods of heartbreak and revelation leading toward a clearing of unexpected hope. Here, in the refuge of memory, he could almost feel Mabel beside him, her presence a comforting balm against the tender newness of familial discovery. John lingered momentarily, savoring the gentle breeze as it rustled the tall grasses, conjuring melodies of yesteryear, imbued now with the silent mirth of rediscovery. He pocketed the photograph of Mabel, aware of the symbolic weight it bore, a token of forgiveness and understanding, a bridge between old love and new beginnings. As he walked across the creaky wooden floorboards toward the living room, each step resonated with a newfound sense of purpose that preserved the hollows of loss while filling them with promise. The familiar scent of aged oak and faded lilac welcomed him home, rekindling memories that swirled with the smoke from the hearth. John set the framed photograph on the mantel, its presence steadying him like a lighthouse in twilight. He sank into the worn armchair, the gentle embrace of leather wrapping around him, sheltering him against the gathering shadows. It was a comforting seat where many winter nights had been spent sharing cocoa and stories with Mabel, the heat of words and laughter warding off the cold's sharp bite. Outside, the retreating light fell upon the garden. The riotous blooms, lovingly tended by Mabel's hands, stood vibrant in the evening's dimming glow, a testament to her undying love, now reflected in their newly found son Daniel. John found a certain symmetry in it all. Life had a curious way of rooting out strength from perceived barren soil, creating new life where only echoes had remained. A soft rattle from the kitchen door interrupted his reverie, and he turned to see Daniel entering, carefully balancing 2 steaming mugs. His gait was cautious but assured. Just hours ago they had been strangers, pieces from different puzzles, but the connection that unfurled through conversation now linked them like branches weaving into a single towering tree. "Care for some tea?" Daniel asked, his voice imbued with a warmth that John was beginning to recognize, a hint of Mabel's musical lilt dancing within its notes. "That would be lovely," John replied, motioning for Daniel to take the seat opposite him. The room, once an expanse echoing with absence, breathed more vibrantly now with the promise of stories yet to be shared. They sat quietly for a moment, each sip of tea a silent assent, a ritual sealing the day's revelations had woven them close. The light ticked slowly away, shadows growing longer against the walls, painting the room in a patchwork of nostalgia and hope. "You've been here before?" John asked after a spell, his question simple, yet teeming with layers of desire for connection, for shared histories not yet lived. "Once," Daniel admitted, his eyes taking in every detail of the room as if committing it to memory. "At Mabel's invitation, our first meeting. She wanted me to know where I came from, the roots of our family." John nodded, a bittersweet pang echoing in his heart, knowing that Mabel's intention had always been for them to unite, someday somehow. "This place is more than a home. It's a collection of memories." "Her stories had color here," Daniel smiled, setting his mug aside. "She painted lives with them, yours together and the wishes she had. It was like returning to a place I'd never been, but where I always belonged." Silence enveloped them once more, though it was the comfortable silence of kin, unpressured by the need to fill it. No words necessary between 2 men shepherded together by a woman whose love transcended even her earthly departure. "The garden," John murmured, his gaze shifting back to the late blooms outside. "That belongs to her. We should keep it alive, you and me." Daniel's smile deepened, lighting up his features with a warmth that banished any lingering specter of doubt. "Yes, we should for her. For ourselves." Time flowed like gentle waves meeting the shore, steady and relentless, hinting at renewed days. John felt his heart ease into the now, like an age-old puzzle piece finding its rightful place after endless searching. They stayed that way, conversations weaving from soft-spoken laughter to hopeful futures, each moment a strand knitting them closer, binding what had been sundered in time's relentless walk. As the night deepened and stars blinked into being, Daniel rose to leave, leaving his presence as a silent promise. They parted with a shared embrace, unceremonious yet potent, resonant with a tomorrow's hope, a burgeoning relationship waiting to be carved from time's tender mercy. John stood alone under the vaulted sky, fresh night air cool against his skin. The farmhouse, a haven once haunted by solitude, pulsed now with life's rich possibility. He watched as Daniel's car lights disappeared into the darkness, a flicker of light descending tenderly, not differently from how a new dawn emerges to brighten the path of those eager to embrace its promise. He returned to the warmth of the home, his once grief-stricken heart a vessel of resilience, of justice finally tempered by love and understanding. From the embers of hurt arose a tapestry of family woven not from mere blood, but from love's tenacious grace and unwieldy boundless reach. In that space, at that moment, John realized with fierce certainty that love never truly left. It simply evolved, shaping new beginnings from what once seemed hopeless and lost. And so, under the shroud of night, surrounded by the echoes of Mabel's resilient spirit, John dared to dream anew, ready for life's next dance, guided by the light of rediscovered kinship and the bright promise of enduring redemption.